What is going on, everyone? How you guys feeling out there? This is Solar Gray, the cinematic sorcerer, and I'm coming at you from the Wizard's Tower. And welcome to the dark side of the room. This is the show. This is the show, the actual show, the awesomeness of the show that we got going, where we talk about nerd culture and games. We've been focusing a lot over the past couple of views about tabletop role-playing games, that what are they, the how-tos, and all of that jazz. But don't turn away. Don't turn away. Because we also talk about how a lot of these things actually relate to stuff that people do all the time. All right? We're not just talking, oh, I play Dungeons and Dragons and I'm that level of nerd, but we're talking like storytelling, story writing, watching TV shows. A lot of the skills that we cover actually help you consume media a lot more completely, and this is one of my favorite bits, allows you to create many things outside of the tabletop role-playing place. And I'm not just talking about miniatures and 3D printing and all that stuff, but all creation, says the wizard, is related in principle, and that is the stuff that we are going to be talking about today. And well, it's generally the stuff that we talk about on this show anyway. So hang out, hang around, what is going on, and subscribe to the channel and all of that jazz. Now, you can subscribe to the channel right now, and I mean that, like right now, over on the YouTube channel, which is the Solar Gray YouTube channel. You totally do that. You can also subscribe here on Twitch, and that's the thing that really helps us out a lot. Now, if you've got an Amazon Prime account, and let's face it, who doesn't at this point, you can subscribe with that, and it won't cost you any more money than you're already spending on subscription services. That's right, you won't get any bills or anything like that. So that is one of the things that's pretty cool and that you can do to really help us out. You can also subscribe over at our YouTube channel, like I said, and of course, if you just want to do a one-time donation, I totally get you. I totally get you on that, and I respect that. All right, just scroll on down, hit the link to the donations page. That'll take it to the back in the deck. That'll take it to the back in the deck. PayPal. My boy Cam is sitting up, and he's ready to, let me know when any of that stuff happens, or at least he's supposed to. We'll see if it happens, if he can actually reach out to me and call me when he's supposed to. And you can also head on over to patreon.com/BID_P. So look at all this stuff. That's right. We have some free content up. We've got a couple of other things. Like, look at that. 5 days ago, we had a video that we put up and all that jazz. So we are doing more short form content. If you guys have any questions about that kind of thing, really easy. All you have to do is contact me at backinthedeck@gmail.com. It's BACKINTHEDECK@gmail.com. You can also hit me up on all the social media that everybody has and no one likes. I have found no one that actually likes Instagram or Twitter. I just see everyone on it all the time, both at Back in the Deck, so go ahead and look for me there. You can also subscribe to the TikTok to see what we got going out there. And again, if you are still part of that wretched hive of scum and villainy known as Facebook, you can totally join Deckers on the Book. All right, that is the show, or that is the little group that we got going for people that like all of this jazz, and you guys can talk to each other and exchange memes and show each other what you're working on and things like that. I'm on that myself. So we got all that stuff going. Let's see, I did all that stuff. Oh yeah, and finally, now that I finally managed to do all that stuff I've been trying to do for all these years, since we got it up and going. We got the thing going, but what do I gotta do? I have to tell you guys, there we go, about our merchandise store. What? Yeah, that's right, we got merch. So let's hang on in there, and guess what? Boom, live page. Everything is on sale for up to 35% off right now, but check it out. Oh, merchandise for you at BidP Merch. All right, these are our two designs. The next one is going up in a couple of days, but this will allow you to get t-shirts and notebooks and pads and tote bags. Like, what? We got tote bags coming out on all this? What is that? You know, nothing is cooler than going to pick up your laundry with Lil Soul giving a hug to your produce. And the stuff is on sale today with all of that stuff. We got stickers and magnets for stupidly low prices. My personal favorite is the coffee mug. I do love me some coffee, as you guys know. So that is some of that stuff. Just head on over to the TeePublic site, and I will put a link there in the link is in the description if you're watching this on YouTube. However, the link is also right here in the chat if you're watching on YouTube or Twitch. And again, you can also join our Discord server. All right, we have so many different ways for you guys to get a hold of us and hang out with us and, you know, ask us questions and do all of that jazz. I really mean it. I really try and make everything that we do here interactive and easily accessible to everybody, because I get so tired of people not believing that we are here for everybody. So that's okay. We're here for everybody. So there you go. There's the link right there in the chat for our merch store. And here's the link right here in the chat to our Discord server, where you guys can talk to me and all the other people who do the Discord thing. So isn't that fun? All right, but with our Patreon, I gotta say I'm very happy and I'm very grateful for our patrons. You know, these are our royalty tier patrons that really help us keep the doors open and pay the internet bill and make sure that if we have a breakdown of equipment, we can replace everything. And this is also important, they help us out with our community outreach, where we go to public parks, community centers, schools, and all that stuff. And summer is coming, y'all. And a lot of these kids are going to want something to do other than stay home and play Minecraft all day. So this is the season that we really shine. So major shout outs to Laura Holden, Shaylee Watson, Jennifer Kroll, Noel Heiler, Glenn Couch, Chris Chalmers, and Joseph Hines. And if you guys want to know more about that, just head on over to the Patreon. So now that we've got that going, let's get the show started, because our topic for today seems a little interesting, doesn't it? I think it seems a little interesting. There's a lot of people, probably a lot of people. Wait, what is this? What is this? Here we got a question. What are the totes made out of? Cotton. They're made out of cotton. They're plain old cotton totes. At least that's what the company tells me, but let me just do a double check on the totes for you. Okay, that's what I will do. Let's do a little description. Boop boop boo doo doo doo. Yeah, there we go. A little small tote. What is the material? Is this item? It's poly. It's polypoplin. Outer laminated coated interior, cotton handles. Okay, and the poly stuff makes it so that you can so that it's waterproof in case you use it for groceries and your soda breaks open, or, you know, condensation happens. It's not a paper bag, you know, so that's the whole deal. Thank you for asking the question. I took a look at it, and there we go. Speaking of questions and all that stuff, who's in the chat right now? Let me see. I see it. I know we got Neon. We got Mr. Booty Pained, Asuka Kamisa. If you're wondering, Mr. Backside Inflammation, why I don't say your name as it's written, because I don't want people to equate that phrase with derogatory stuff. Okay, like I learned that in a sense of pejoratively telling someone that they need to toughen up or anything like that, and I don't want to do that. I try and come up with other names like Mr. Butter 7, you know? And yeah, so that's really once a thing. So danking around, Sony PlayStation, thank you guys for showing up. Bring some friends in and refer them to this video because we're going to be talking about something that I don't think gets covered enough or deeply enough within the realm of tabletop RPGs, all right? And what we are going to talk about are the different levels of backstory. Now, I have a short form video on this that's coming up this week. And that's right, I got my coffee. And I want to talk about a couple of things because I talk to a lot of GMs, a lot of younger GMs, and a lot of GMs that have only been playing the game for less than 5 years. Okay? And there is this thing, I love the way that they state it out there with characters saying, ask me about my backstory, ask me about my backstory, ask me about my backstory. No, you know, they just bug you. Hey, would you like to know how I got these scars? And then you ask, all right, how'd you get these scars? I'm not gonna tell you. You know, and that can be a little, yeah, a little trying for the patience, one might say. But there is a lot of ideas out there when it comes to backstory with your character that if your character has a backstory, it comes out in exposition dump and only exposition dump, all right? And what is an exposition dump? It's that part of the movie where one of the characters tells the history of the plot, you know? If you are a fan of Tyler Perry, you know exposition. I can't believe you, a Pulitzer winning photographer for a world renowned paper, are having problems with your vision. Okay, and if you are as big a Neil Breen fan as I am, you know what exposition talks. No, your mother was my sister, and I have it. I took an oath. I swore an oath to protect you. Because when your mother, my sister, died, I promised to take care of you and make sure that you were brought up right. That's exposition. Okay? You know, and it can be subtle, like, you know, a long time ago, a group of pirates found a whole bunch of gold, but it was cursed, you know? But exposition is when the premise of the story comes out by way of dialogue. All right? So, you know, a lot of people, especially newer gamers, have this idea of, I've created a backstory and now I'm waiting for my chance to have a monologue on exposition. And in truth, I see this happen. I get caught up in it myself when it comes to, what is the term I'm actually looking for with this? When it comes to interacting with people in a lot of levels, you know? If you've ever hung out at a comic book convention and you asked a person about themselves, they're like, yes, well, I'm very patient. I'm a good person. I did this. I mastered this martial art and went on to this martial art. And and all that exposition about their backstory. Okay. But I want to address it because I think it's good that people have backstory. I really do. I think it's really important. But what we see in a lot of videos out what we see out there in the internet space about backstory is, don't give your GM a novel about your backstory because your GM don't actually want to read it, and have a backstory but don't run around waiting to tell people about it. That's all we get. We don't get anything deeper. So I want to do a little bit of a deeper dive with the limited time we have. Okay. Now, here's the big thing. Backstory is essentially, what is the history of this person, place, or thing up to the moment it comes up in your story. Okay. That means, who was this person before they joined Starfleet? What is the history of this magical artifact? Tell me about this place. Now, I'm not saying that exposition dumps are bad, okay? Um, let's be real. There's something different in the land. I can feel it on the water. The beginning of Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, is an amazing exposition dump. It is an exposition dump, it is a backstory on the world, and it is amazing. Facts. Not every single person who plays a tabletop role-playing game or does creative writing or writes fan fiction is that good a writer. Okay? And when I say that good, I mean compelling. You know, not to mention when you're at the tabletop role-playing game, you don't have the benefit of special effects, a professionally made score, and an army of 10,000 elves in armor and swinging swords, okay? But backstory is still important nonetheless. So what can we do? What can we do? Well, one of the things I like to do as a GM is I like to give backstory to magical artifacts, okay? Heck, I like to give backstories to heirloom artifacts. What does that mean? Well, there's a Robert A. Heinlein story called The Star Beast, and it's about a kid that has an alien for a pet, and this alien has been the family pet for like 5 generations because its lifespan is way longer than a human's. And one, two, skip a few, they end up going out of space, and it turns out that the pet is arguing for the continuance of the existence of humans because its species and its interstellar conglomeration, a federation of planets, wants to destroy the human race. And it's like, no, I've been keeping these guys as pets for hundreds of their years, and they're good people, you know. Yeah, that was a twist. Spoiler for a 56-year-old book. Sorry. But I like the idea that an heirloom, a pet, something that has passed down from person to person to person, it in and of itself has a story. And as a GM, I like having those stories and using elements from those backstories as plot components to make the game more interesting and compelling, just like I do with character backstories. And this is what I want to talk about integration. Okay, for a lot of new players out there, they give in to the temptation to write a novella about their backstory, and in truth, I encourage it. However, do not encourage turning in the novella for their backstory. Prepping for a game does take a while, and having 400 pages of this character's life story is a little, well, it's a lot to read, and second, it's very constraining for the GM. Okay? And it runs the danger of turning the game from a collaborative experience to the character with the biggest backstory becomes the main character of the campaign. You get what I'm saying? But an outline for a backstory is always good. Bullet points. Who were they? All that stuff. I'm releasing a short form video about it onto the Patreon on Friday. And the fact of the matter is these things really help the GM. Okay? The show Game of Thrones does really well with this when it comes to the Valyrian steel swords. These swords have been in the family for as long as the family has been the family, and it's the thing that they pass down. Be it Ice, the family sword of House Stark, or even Starlight, the sword for House Valyrian, which isn't or House you guys know who I'm talking about, the Star of the Morning and all that stuff. But anyway, their sword isn't even made from Valyrian steel. It's a meteor sword, you know. So yeah, Dane, House Dane. So what have these heirlooms seen? Okay, that kind of thing. Somebody's obsessed with the boys in the comments. So yeah, I figured you might have thought when I said Starlight, I was talking about the Muse song. But either way, um, when everything comes down with your backstory, um, I do have a list of topics to think about when it comes to the backstory that only require 1 or 2 sentences each. Like I said, that's going to be a short form video on Patreon on Friday, and then eventually, and then next week on the YouTube channel. Okay. Now we got Daryl over on YouTube saying, yeah, that he always says that they need at least a paragraph of backstory. Now, let's talk about the integration of backstory into the game, and this is part of a larger topic. Okay, the largest topic is communication, but there are a lot of newer players that have a backstory. They've written out the backstory, but what they haven't done is shared that backstory with the GM. What they tend to do is they hold on to the backstory and they only turn in the backstory right before they want the story that the GM is running to change its direction and focus on that character. All right. This is not a great habit. All right. Again, it turns it away from an ensemble piece to a starring piece with supporting characters. You get what I mean on that? And again, you can't tell me who the main character of Lord of the Rings is because the whole fellowship had a lot. It's arguable that Frodo is the main character, but Sam could also be the main character. Aragorn could be the main character. Gandalf can be the main character. There's so many perspectives you can see the story from just with what's on the screen or in the books. Okay, that is an ensemble cast. I always like to reference the Justice League or the X-Men for this point. Now, that doesn't mean that Wolverine doesn't have a backstory. Okay, that doesn't mean that elements from Wolverine's backstory don't pop up and affect the rest of the X-Men. You know, what happens when Sabretooth goes on a rampage? The X-Men have got to stop him, even though Wolverine is trying to, be that guy, bub. But fact, and I mean this, actual, all the way down the line fact, one of the X-Men's biggest threat has a direct tie to the backstory of Professor Xavier. And of course, I'm talking the Juggernaut, all right? But when the Juggernaut shows up and it does his thing. Sometimes it's related to Charles, sometimes it's not, but it's something that the team has to come together and fix, right? So, when it comes to integrating your backstory, number one, you have to give the GM the chance to, guys. Give them a quick write-up. Some GMs, like Daryl over there, says at least have at least a paragraph. All right. I really like asking questions. That's what I do. I'm an interviewer. Okay. And I ask a few questions about the backstory. And when I'm writing backstory to magic items, artifacts, or MacGuffins, I put the stuff in there. I put it in there when it comes to a new spell, a new technology. Who wrote it? Where did it come from? Who else is looking for it? How do people feel when they see it? Is it shock and awe, or is it awe and inspiration? All of these things are questions that add to story and expand on the gaming experience for everyone. One of the big things I like about knowing my characters' backstory is integrating elements from their backstories and making those elements interact with each other. Okay? Ooh, look at that. Almost like there is a separate game going on in the background because there are so many stories out there that they are bound to cross each other. Alliances are made when there is common purpose. You get me? So let's say the enemy of your ranger is looking for the artifact of your barbarian, in order to defeat the mentor of your wizard. You see where I'm going? All of these things can be put together if a GM thinks about it, but a GM can't think about it if the GM isn't informed on what it is. All right? And these are just really quick, off the top of my head, spitballing ideas that I can throw out there and make, and I guess you could say, and create gaming experiences for people. And these are the same things that you guys can do. All right? Now, when it comes to integrating backstory, you players out there, listen close. You GMs out there, listen more closely. Okay? When you have characters that have backstory, there is nothing out there that says that you have to incorporate every single aspect of your players' backstory to the plot all at once. Okay? That's not the way good storytelling goes. The chat was talking about a lot of Star Trek stuff. How can I put it? Between The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine, there was a lot of Borg stuff. And the Borg stuff was not wrapped up in a single episode. In fact, it wasn't wrapped up in a single show. All right? It took Star Trek The Next Generation, 2 movies, a few episodes of Deep Space Nine, 3 seasons of Voyager, and a season of Picard to continue with the Borg stuff. You see what I mean? Everyone has their experiences with this force of nature. Everyone has backstory related to these things, but it's out there. All right? So you can't put all of that stuff in 3 episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation. There was a whole lot more story. There was a whole lot more story to integrate and to create when it came to these. All right? So when, as a GM, I'm dealing with my characters' backstory, I look for the bullet points. What am I thinking? I look for the bullet points. I look for the big parts of their backstory. Okay. No one has 100% of their life figured out. No one at any age. I know I have watched people on their deathbed going, I never quite got that. You know, I really have. And there are so many things that are out there, guys. To experience both fictitiously and in real life, that we're not going to get a hold of all of them all at once. All right. Now, some of you guys know that outside of this, I am looking for clientele so that I don't have to get a job at Home Depot. But I am a life coach outside of here, right? And I'm not here to be like, brick a brack a firecracker, sis boom ba, you got this, rah rah rah. No, I'm not that guy. All right, but what I will say is that the idea of having closure on every issue with no scar tissue, no past, no reawakening of old wounds and all that stuff, that is 100% fictitious. All right? There is stuff that can come up in a regular person all the way from the 3rd grade when they're in their 50s. Okay? So given that, there are parts in every character's backstory that can be tapped for more stories. An incident that happened when they were 8 and dealing with their families. An incident that happened when they were at wizarding school. And this is a really big thing that helps with the integration of backstory into stories that last, all right? Into stories that people talk about for decades, which is this, okay? Get a pencil. You ready? You ready? Okay, you ready? Are you listening? Are you listening? Are you listening? Listen good. No one ever knows every single consequence of any action performed by any other person. Huh? Look at that. Look at that. Okay? What does that mean? That means no one can calculate for all of the consequences for anything that happens. Every time you finish a story, it has an effect on something else in that world. Okay? And that effect on something else in that world can be integrated into a story all its own. So there's a lot of stuff that's there. Okay? A great example of this in recent media was the Black Panther movie. All right? Wakanda had their happily ever after. They were living in their happily ever after. But their lack of action against the history of the world from the moment they went into isolationism left them with a moral question of, can they consider themselves good when they have the knowledge and the means to prevent evil? You know, the consequences of their stuff was they didn't get involved in any of the world wars, the rise of communism, the invention and use of nuclear weapons. They could have done something they could have done something about Chernobyl. And let's not even get started with the transatlantic involuntary intern program. Okay? They could have done anything, and they didn't. They let the world unwind the way that it did because they couldn't be bothered. All right? Those were the consequences to their happy ending. Clever Vixen actually points out, yeah, just like real life and The Good Place. The Good Place did an amazing job on showing the unintended consequences for the actions that were even the most noble, the most pure, the most humble. Okay? And they can still lead to negative consequences. Now, that isn't saying, that right there isn't saying that every action has a negative consequence, so why try and do anything good? No, that is not where people should go with that, especially in life and especially in storytelling. Okay? What it means, okay, is that no story is ever done. All right? No story is ever completely wrapped up in the same way, in the exact same way as they are on a sitcom that will never be brought up, that was never mentioned before the plot and never brought up after the plot. Okay? A lot of serialized TV tries to do this, but they have constraints with budget and executives and all that stuff. Yes, black and white, now in color. Some negative actions can lead to good. That's brought up with comic book characters like Doctor Doom, Ozymandias, people like that. So all of these things in backstory. Oh, Daryl is sitting up saying, yeah, the same could be said for the White Council and the Dresden Files. It's true, all right? As my favorite rock band of all time said, if you choose not to decide, you've still made a choice. Every choice has consequences, and consequences aren't necessarily negative. Okay, consequences just means the things that happened because of an action taken. That's it. That's all. Okay? So when it comes to incorporating someone's backstory into the game that you're writing or into the stories that you're writing, you don't have to incorporate all of it at once. Okay? Because real talk, there are so many intended or unintended consequences for every single action. Not all of them have to be related. A lot of them can be related. Even more of them, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, shouldn't be. They really shouldn't be, unless they find relation over the course of the story that we're observing, i.e., the one that we're writing, the one that we're playing, or the one that we're reading. Right? Um, and this is like really, this is what I'm giving you guys here right now is literary gold. Okay, literary gold. The entire plot of the Lord of the Rings were the consequences of Isildur not throwing the ring into Mordor, right? The whole, like the original Star Wars trilogy were the direct consequences of Obi-Wan not killing Anakin when he had the chance. I mean, all of these things are directly across. And most of the time in backstory, people perform actions they do because they either don't see the consequences that are coming, especially in youth, or, and this sums up a good amount of young adulthood and adulthood overall, they don't see any good consequences, so they take the actions that has the fewest bad ones. And the key word there is fewest. The least amount. Okay, that doesn't mean there are no negative consequences. That just means there are few of them, or the ones that they can see will have less of a negative effect. Okay. And that is when a lot of things can come back and bite you in the butt. And that biting in the butt and what we do now, is where some of the best stories come from. Okay. I love you guys. I really do. I love you guys. Because there's so much love for story and fantasy and science fiction and all of that. Every single one of these genres are the consequences of the backstories that happened before the show started or before the story started. You know, I brought up Star Wars because I wanted you guys to keep talking. Haha, you have been played, because every single one of you guys have come up with different inspiration for the consequences of the New Hope trilogy that are based on stuff that happened from the trilogy. Okay, I gave one consequence that could be the reason. We got Daryl over here saying the actions of the Jedi Council, which I say is the answer of the worldly. We've got Neon Arlecchino saying Obi-Wan choosing to let his brother suffer as he died instead of ending him quickly, although this may have gone almost the same since the Emperor was orchestrating things. There's a lot of stuff, and there are stories from every single one of these points. Every single one. All right. But with that, I want to get into something about backstory, which can be a sticking point for a lot of people. And I'm going to open it up like this. I know in our world today, there is a moraine of religious behavior, or should I say a moraine of organized religion. Now, I am not a big fan of organized religion. Okay. I come from a family of deep zealots. But unfortunately, I ask way too many questions because I'm incapable of worship, and my mind works too fast to have faith in what religions teach. Okay. But human beings as a whole need something to believe in as far as one big concept. Okay? And the one big concept is it's gotta make sense. And the it that I'm talking about is the universe. Okay? The universe has gotta make sense. Now, since we're not a very religious world anymore, okay? I will say, there is a zealot-like commitment to one word. And I want to bring that up since we're talking about backstory and creating story and creating characters. Okay? And that word is canon. All right? What I see when I look into the entertainosphere are a lot of people that really, really, really want a singular answer for story, a singular way for things to make sense. This is canon. This is why this happened. There is no other answer. That is it. I have to believe that. Life can't be that chaotic. And the fact is, life isn't that chaotic. It's just there is more than one way to order things. All right? Now, how does this write up with backstory? Well, in collaboration with the dungeon master, the backstory that you write for character isn't canon the moment you write it and the moment you think about it. Things that become canon in game and tabletop role-playing games all the way across, I don't care what system you run, nothing is canon until it is played by the players. Okay? That is huge. Until it is played by the players and remembered, everything is flexible. Okay? And what do I mean by that? You could write up that you watched your parents die in a fire when you were 11 years old. Okay? And that the bodies that were pulled out were most definitely your parents. Okay? And since then, you've been an orphan. Well, if you're playing D&D, there is nothing to say that they weren't resurrected behind your back. If you're writing comic books, dude, Bucky was dead for 70 years. You know, retcons are not retroactive continuity until it's been played and accepted by the people involved and then changed after that. Now, if you write something in your backstory, there are a lot of things in your backstory that your GM always has the option of accepting as your backstory or changing in game. This is called incorporation. This is a huge part of conglomeration, cooperating, group creation. All right? And this is really, 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 really important. Now, I know, look, guys, I grew up a black guy in Southern California, which isn't the most rural place, but I did spend a lot of time in my adult life around places where I wasn't welcome because of the circumstance of my birth. So I know what it's like to be tread by people who make a decision in their head and tell you how it's gonna be. I also know what it's like dealing with people that make up a decision in their head and tell you what it's gonna be like because people do it with them all the time and they just want their turn. We talk about this stuff on the show all the time. Okay? I get it. Get where you're coming from. However, when we're at the gaming table, we don't need to pay attention to those scars. Okay? When you write stuff in your character's backstory and you turn it over to the GM, at the end of the day, the GM is sort of the editor of the book. Okay? And they have the power to make editorial mandates within the rules of the written game, which also includes the rule of cool. However, the job of having that much power is to make sure that everybody has something cool. All right? Everybody has something cool. If, you know, let's take the example that I just brought up. Your character saw their parents die in a fire, the bodies were dragged out. You definitely identified that it was your parents. There is no way your parents didn't die in that fire. Okay? However, did they orchestrate the fire? Did they stay dead? When they came back to life, were they aware that they were your parent? If they were aware that they were your parent, did they stay away from you for your own safety? I mean, there's a whole lot there, and every single one of those questions are potential for games. Hey, every single one of those are potential for a gaming thing. You know, do they work for the bad guy? Look, we live in the 21st century, right? If you guys watched Vox Machina, this particular story arc, or should I say this particular trope, was explored with the Percy character who knew his whole family was dead and then saw that his sister had been brainwashed by the bad guys. Spoiler, but it's been out for over a year, and that campaign is more than 4 years old, okay? I mean, there is just a whole lot there that can be done, all right? So, having the rule and the understanding that nothing in your backstory is canon until it is played out on the table with a quorum of the rest of the characters does a lot, all right? And I mean, really does a lot. That means the backstory that you write doesn't have to come with so much pressure, okay? You don't have to write a book to say, this is my character, I have crafted him whole cloth, and he has popped out of my head like I was Zeus and he was Athena, and he is fully formed with sword and shield, and he is fantastic. No, you don't have to do that. I'll tell you, every novel you've ever read has had a minimum of 3 alterations. Every TV show you've watched and 96% of movies that you've seen, okay? And I say 96% because there's that little bitty sliver of the total auteur director who films their stuff and goes straight to YouTube and releases it the way they will, and it's genius. But the 96% of your movies that you've watched as well have all gone through pass after pass after pass from groups of writers, from editors, from directors, from distributors, from censors. So, you guys have never seen a story written whole cloth and released as is. All right? And I'm sorry to tell you guys, and I'm saying this as a musician, even musicians that release their own demos don't release the songs as it was written wholeheartedly, okay? They worked on those songs, changing chords here, changing lyrics there. Nothing comes out fully formed on its first pass. And understanding this really frees you up when writing your character's backstory. Because it doesn't, the way that you write it doesn't have to be the way that it is, set in stone, set in concrete. It has places that it can be shaped and evolved into and streamlined and polished. I hope you guys are really seeing what I'm saying here. Okay, I'm trying my best to make this as clear as possible. Your character backstory are more than a scaffolding. It is definitely more than a series of ideas. Of what your character went through, what shaped them, what they're like, what happened, and how what happened has shaped the world around them. Now it is definitely set in stone how your character's backstory has affected them. Okay? Them, but not the world around them, not the capable stories, or not the potential stories, right? And that in and of itself isn't free. It isn't confining. It is as freeing as all get out, right? So when you turn in your backstories to your GM, keep these things in mind. You know, every writer has a few things, just has a few things that they are married to, just their babies. Sometimes you got to kill babies. You know, I'm saying in your story, it's kill your darlings. All right, it's you're married to this idea, even though it doesn't work, and you got to be willing to let that go when it comes to creation sometimes. However, this is a real big one. Not every single thing you put on the page has to be that. All right. I like to tell my players and the people that I work with that I work with them for a reason, and that I do value them. I value who they are. I value what they can do, even though I may not agree with their ideas. All right. That doesn't mean I think that they as a whole are bad. But I know we live in a time of 40 years of bad parenting. And when I say bad parenting, I mean there was a time through no fault of any adults today where we where we dissolved the differentiation between incorrect or incompatible with morally lacking. Okay? And I know a lot of gamers are recovering from those scars. I am. But the thing is, as much as we were told platitudes, especially in the 90s and the early 2000s, about how everything you do should represent the best of yourself, that's not going to happen. That is not human. Okay, that is not human. It can represent the best of who you are at that moment, but not the best of who you ever were or are capable of being. Therefore, you are not being judged by those criterias. Or more to the point, when you're at a game table, being condemned by those criterias are not behavior that is indicative of good gameplay. Okay, this is real talk, guys. You know, the short story that you wrote does not represent who you were born to be. You know, the song that you write or the way that you play the song this time because you have an idea, that has nothing to do with the ultimate form of you, and doing something incorrectly or creating something that's good but not good for the situation or good for the environment. That doesn't mean that you as a whole are bad, but I also understand that I am one voice going against 30, yeah, I would say 30, because this thought process kind of started in the late 80s, early 90s, and it's 2022 at time of this recording. So I get how I'm one voice talking against 30 years of culture, but I'm speaking factually, because if coming up with an idea that doesn't work for this thing means you shouldn't have been born, then who should have? Who? You know, I challenge these concepts by asking for evidence of proof positive. Okay, show me not just proof positive, but show me proof positive in the majorative when it comes to statistics and numbers. All right. So yeah, that is a real big thing. When it comes down to writing your backstory, I recommend writing some key points that are indicative to the character's story, that influenced how the character thinks, what they believe, and why they behave the way that they behave. Okay, which is essentially me saying how they act twice. I know. But there is also another thing, and that is the player must leave room for the character to evolve beyond the backstory. All right. So there's a lot of stuff with this. Again, I wanted to have this episode before I started working on the short form video, because the short form video is only 10 minutes long, and this is an hour discussion with you guys. I wanted to bring up some of that stuff. And yeah, just keep in mind that if you're a player or a GM, you don't have to incorporate a character's entire backstory all at once. You can take a piece here, throw it into the story. Take a piece from another character over here, throw it into the story. Take two pieces from over here, shove them into the story at different parts of the game plot. These are things that encourage character interaction, encourage teamwork, all of those. Okay? But you don't have to use it all at once. In fact, you don't have to use it all. At least not in a single campaign, let alone a single session, right? But they're there, and these are things that really bring the gaming experience to life and brings the stories to life. All right. So if you guys dig what I say, because like I said, your mileage may vary, but if you guys are digging what I'm saying, then I appreciate it. Let me know over in the Discord. You know, we can talk about this at length in Discord. And you can always hit me up at backinthedeck@gmail.com. That's BACKINTHEDECK at gmail.com. And that would be awesome if you guys were to do that, or hit me up on the social media all there. Again, I really want to bring up the merchandise store, because we're always, in truth guys, we're just always trying to make sure that the bills are paid and that we can continue to do our community outreach. You see what I'm saying? So yeah, so check out the merch store, have some fun with this stuff. T-shirts are awesome. It's one of my favorite ways to advertise anyone. Like, I've got loads of double toasted shirts. I'm getting myself some Nerd Soul shirts and some Blurtish shirts. Seriously representing all these people. Although, I would really appreciate it if you guys picked up notebooks and mugs, just so like if we ever find ourselves at conventions and stuff, we can be like, hey, what's up? But t-shirts are actually better for that. Honestly, I get $3 to $4 per sale, so it's not a big deal. When I say it's not a big deal, it's not a big deal what you buy, but I really need this stuff to move so that I can keep going out, finding the life coaching clients, and I don't have to get a job at Home Depot or Costco, so that I can keep being here at the same time every day. So that is a really big thing for me. Now, I want to thank Daryl for showing up and holding it down on YouTube. Share the video, bro. Let people know, like, hey, at this particular point, he's talking about something. At least check out that part. Major shout outs to my patrons. You guys know who you are. Thank you, Olivia. Hey, welcome. Asuka Mikasa, thank you. Black and White Now in Color, Danking Around, and Sinkable. LaKaylee, yay! LaKaylee, it's been a while. You and Lana Ray haven't been here for a while. Neon Arlecchino, Neon Knight 13, Sony PlayStation, Super 8, Vixabel Cosplay, and holding it down like gravity is Clever Little Vixen. So thank all of you guys for showing up. Thank you for the great conversation, and I really mean that, because I do interact with I do very much interact with the chat. You guys mean a lot to me on that. And I gotta say, tomorrow we're doing Dark Side of the Room, or not Dark Side of the Room. We're gonna be busting a recap on The Boys, Season 3, Episode 1. However, I am going to have a different guest tomorrow, because the Bard in the Deck unfortunately had to hop on a boat and go to the middle of the ocean for this week. So while he's out having his adventures, and I'm sure that there's going to be a story about it, we're going to have a special guest tomorrow so we can talk about the show. All right, but until then, catch up on the show, and if anybody tells you that you guys can't like what you like because of the circumstances of your birth, be it race, religion, creed, gender identity, sexual orientation, your disabilities, or your budget, you can tell any of them to put those cards back in the deck. All right, now if you guys are really into the role-playing games and all that stuff, then tonight at 6:30, that's 2.5 hours from now, I will be running Warp Tumblers with my pirate, my ranger, and my fairy sorcerer. We're getting back to that game on Warp Tumblers at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, so that's 2.5 hours from now. So come on back, twitch.tv/BID_P, and thank you guys so much for being here, having the conversation with us, and we will see you guys tomorrow as we bust a recap on The Boys Season 3, Episode 1.